Vincent Harlo sat alone at the riverside cafe, staring at the water shimmering under the late afternoon sun. His coffee had gone cold 20 minutes ago, untouched. Across the bridge, colorful buildings reflected the golden light, standing like silent witnesses to yet another failed attempt at human connection. This blind date had been arranged by his sister. Just meet her, Vincent. She's different. Not like the others, she had insisted. Vincent had grown tired of women who saw his wealth before seeing him, who were more interested in vineyards, estates, and corporate shares than a simple conversation. He glanced at his watch. 4:30. She was 30 minutes late. He was about to leave, saving the rest of his Saturday for himself, when he saw her, a young woman running down the wooden dock toward him. His first reaction was shock. Her beige dress was plastered with mud, streaks running down her cardigan and splattered across her hem. Her hair, pulled back in a ponytail, had pieces of mud stuck to her neck. She held her shoes in one hand and walked barefoot on the weathered planks. Vincent's first instinct, turn and leave. This wasn't the picture-perfect first date he imagined. She was a disaster. But then she looked up at him. Her eyes were green, clear, alive, and unwavering despite the chaos around her. There was mortification there, yes, but also a spark of determination, maybe even defiance. "I'm Natalie," she said, slightly breathless. "And before you run away, which I can see you're about to do, let me explain." Vincent paused, curiosity slowly overtaking his urge to flee. "I was on my way here," Natalie continued, words rushing out, "and I saw a dog trapped in a drainage ditch near the bridge. A little terrier, scared and hurt. Everyone else just walked by, taking pictures with their phones. No one was helping. So I climbed down there. The mud was deeper than I expected. I carried him to the vet 3 blocks over. He'll be fine." She set her muddy shoes on the dock edge, as if that gesture could make her more presentable. Vincent studied her. The mud, the bare feet, the complete absence of vanity or pretense. It was unlike anything he'd expected. "Sit down," he said quietly, almost without thinking. "Please, sit down." Natalie lowered herself carefully into the chair, avoiding spreading more mud. A waiter approached, glanced at her, and his expression betrayed disapproval. "It's fine," Vincent said firmly. "Whatever she'd like. And bring a warm towel, please." Natalie looked down. "You don't have to stay. I understand if you want to leave. Your sister told me you're successful and probably don't have time for someone who shows up like this, muddy, late, and, well..." "My sister talks too much," Vincent interrupted, a faint smile breaking through. "Tell me about the dog." Her relief was visible. She spoke of the little terrier trembling in the ditch, how she had slid through mud and water to reach him, and how the dog had licked her face all the way to the vet. "I'm a veterinary technician," she said. "Even if I weren't, I would have helped anyway." "Why?" Vincent asked, genuinely curious. "Because he needed help," she replied simply. "Because no one else was going to. Because that's what decent people do." The waiter returned with tea and a warm towel. Natalie cleaned her hands and face as best she could, but the mud on her dress remained. "You saved a life today," Vincent said softly. "That matters more than being on time." Natalie studied him, disbelief turning into a smile. "You really mean that?" "I do," Vincent said. And for the first time in weeks, maybe months, the walls around him began to crack. As the sun dipped lower, painting the river in golden hues, Natalie spoke of her life. Growing up on a small farm, being the youngest of 4 daughters, and learning that wealth wasn't measured in money, but in what you gave to others. Vincent found himself opening up too, talking about his upbringing, his wealth, and the isolation that came with it. When Natalie asked him, "Do you invest in things you believe in, or just things that make money?" he paused. No one had ever asked him that before. And for the first time, he wondered if there was more to life than just returns and growth. Something had shifted between them, born not from appearances or wealth, but from shared humanity. The sun had dipped lower, casting long golden reflections on the river as Vincent and Natalie sat across from each other. Mud and all, she had captured his full attention. For the first time in months, Vincent wasn't thinking about wealth, status, or appearances. He was thinking about her, The bravery it took to save a little terrier no one else noticed, the sheer honesty in her muddy eyes. Vincent leaned forward, curiosity softening into admiration. "Tell me more about that dog," he said, genuinely intrigued. Natalie smiled, relief washing over her. "He was tiny, shaking in the drainage ditch. I couldn't just leave him there. People were just watching, taking pictures on their phones. I slid through mud, through water, and finally scooped him up. He licked my face the whole way to the clinic." She chuckled lightly, brushing some stray mud from her sleeve. "I work at a veterinary clinic. Helping animals is what I do, but even if I didn't, I wouldn't have left him there. It just felt wrong." Vincent's chest tightened. Her commitment, her instinct to act instead of hesitate. He had never seen anyone like that. "Why?" he asked softly. "Because it matters," she replied simply. "Someone had to help. Because decent people do what's right, even if no one's watching." He studied her for a long moment. That simple philosophy, that quiet courage, it wasn't flashy, it wasn't calculated, and it wasn't tied to money or status. It was human, and it resonated deeply. The way to return with a warm towel and tea. Natalie carefully cleaned her hands and face, but the mud on her dress remained. Vincent gestured toward it. "Don't apologize. You saved a life today. That's more important than being on time." Her eyes widened, surprise mixing with relief. "You really mean that?" "I do," he said. And for the first time, he realized there was more to life than the spreadsheets, the portfolios, and the endless meetings. There was real value in messy, inconvenient, yet profoundly meaningful moments. They talked for hours. Natalie shared stories of growing up on a farm outside the city, her 4 sisters, and the lessons her parents had taught her about compassion and responsibility. She spoke about her clinic work, the animals she had cared for, and the small victories that brought her joy. Vincent listened intently, opening up in ways he hadn't in years, about his upbringing in a wealthy but emotionally distant household, the isolation behind his family's fortune, and the hollow pursuit of success that had defined his life until now. "Do you invest in things you believe in, or just things that make money?" Natalie asked suddenly, tilting her head. Vincent blinked. No one had ever asked him that before. "I never thought about it that way," he admitted. "I guess I focus on returns and growth." "Sometimes," she said gently, "it's not about what you earn, but what you make better." Her words lingered in the warm, late afternoon air. For the first time, Vincent considered the impact of his actions beyond his own wealth. Could he use his resources for something meaningful? Something that mattered, not just to him, but to the world? Natalie leaned back in her chair, smiling despite the mud and chaos. "Life isn't neat, Vincent. It's messy, unpredictable. But that's where real connections happen, in the middle of the mess." He nodded slowly, the weight of a perspective sinking in. The muddy clothes, the bare feet, even the late arrival. Suddenly, none of it mattered. What mattered was integrity, courage, and the choice to act when it counted. As the evening approached, Vincent offered to walk her to the bridge. She carried her shoes, still muddy, still barefooted, yet walking with a grace and confidence that left him speechless. People stayed, but Natalie didn't seem to notice. She had a purpose that transcended judgment. "Can I see you again?" Vincent asked when they reached the point where they would part ways. Natalie's lips curved into a knowing smile. "Even after this disaster of a first date? Especially after this. You're the first real person I've met in years. Real people are messy sometimes." "I'm starting to think that's the point," Vincent said softly. Over the next few weeks, their connection deepened. Vincent attended her work at the animal clinic, rolling up his sleeves to clean kennels, feed cats, and even meet the terrier she had rescued. He learned the subtle joys of compassion, patience, and small victories. Natalie introduced him to her world, simple yet profoundly rewarding. He introduced her to his art galleries, quiet dinners, evenings under city lights, but this time, the experiences felt different. The focus shifted from status and luxury to shared values and authentic moments. Their worlds, so different in scale and focus, began to merge. Vincent's friends were baffled. "She works for minimum wage at an animal clinic. What do you even have in common?" they asked. Everything that matters, he said quietly. And slowly, quietly, his investments began to reflect that belief, funding sustainable agriculture, supporting animal shelters, and investing in programs that benefited underserved communities. Each decision, he consulted Natalie. You see what actually matters, he told her. Natalie's eyes glimmered. It's not about permission, she said. It's about perspective. For Vincent, it was a revelation. The muddy first date was no longer a mishap. It was the start of a transformation, the moment he realized what true wealth really meant. 6 months after that muddy first date, Vincent and Natalie returned to the Riverside Cafe. The same table, the same view of the colorful buildings across the bridge. The memory of that day hung between them, warm and vivid. Are you recreating our disaster? Natalie teased, a playful sparkle in her green eyes. Actually, Vincent said, reaching across the table to take her hand, I'm trying to fix a mistake I made. What mistake? She asked, curiosity piqued. When I first saw you that day, covered in mud, my instinct was to walk away, to leave someone who didn't fit my narrow idea of what my life should look like. Natalie smiled softly. And you taught me something important, he said, squeezing her hand gently. The messiest, most unexpected moments are often the most important. That real connection isn't clean, convenient, or predictable. It shows up muddy, and it asks us to look past the surface. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. I'm not good at speeches, but I know this. You make me want to be better. Not richer, not more successful, but actually better. Kinder, more present, more real. Tears welled in Natalie's eyes as she laughed softly through them. Marry me, Natalie. Let me spend the rest of my life learning to see the world the way you do. She laughed again, this time through joyful tears. You do realize I'll keep showing up muddy, right? There will always be another animal to rescue, another crisis to handle. I'm counting on it, he said, smiling. That's who you are. That's why I love you. Her answer was simple but perfect. Yes, absolutely yes. 1 year later, Vincent and Natalie stood in the barn behind their farmhouse on 20 acres outside the city. Not a mansion, but a comfortable home surrounded by nature. Half the land was an animal sanctuary Natalie ran, the other half conservation land protected forever. Natalie appeared in the doorway, covered in dust from moving hay bales. Her hair was messy, her shirt had a tear from a playful goat. Yet she was beautiful, radiant in her authenticity. Come see, she called. The new rescue dogs just arrived. There's one I think you'll love. Vincent followed her to the kennels, where a nervous shepherd mix cowered in the corner. He approached slowly, speaking gently. The dog's tail gave a tentative wag. He needs someone patient, Natalie said. Someone willing to earn his trust. Vincent glanced at her, a soft smile spreading across his face. I know something about that, he said. They worked together until sunset, caring for the animals under their protection. Vincent's former colleagues thought he had gone mad, walking away from high finance to run a sanctuary. His parents stopped speaking to him when he redirected his inheritance toward conservation. But Vincent had discovered a different kind of wealth, one measured in love, integrity, and purpose. That evening, they sat on the porch under the stars. A rescue cat purred in Natalie's lap, and a three-legged dog dozed at Vincent's feet. Do you ever miss it? She asked softly. The old life, the luxury. Vincent thought for a long moment. No, that life was comfortable but empty. This life, messy, unpredictable, exhausting. It's everything I never knew I needed, even when I show up muddy. Especially then. Natalie leaned her head against his shoulder. I was so nervous that day. I almost didn't come after rescuing the dog. I thought you'd walk away. I almost did too, Vincent admitted. I was too focused on appearances. Then what changed your mind? She asked. Your eyes, the way you looked at me, refusing to apologize for doing the right thing. You knew your worth had nothing to do with how you looked. That confidence, that certainty about what matters, stopped me. Vincent pulled her closer. People spend their lives chasing the wrong things. Money, status, perfection. Real wealth is this. Sitting here with someone you love, building something meaningful together. even if it's covered in mud. Natalie asked, smiling. Especially if it's covered in mud, Vincent said, laughing softly. In the distance, an owl called. The animals settled for the night. Vincent, who once measured life in stock portfolios and property values, finally understood true wealth. It was having someone who showed up muddy, unapologetic, teaching him that the most valuable things in life could not be cleaned up, scheduled, or controlled. They simply had to be embraced exactly as they were, messy, unexpected, and absolutely perfect. And in that golden light, amidst the rescued animals and the land they protected, Vincent and Natalie knew they had built a life worth living, a life that mattered, a life that showed the beauty of humanity in its rawest, truest form.